struggle here is that there is no one answer, because one point that is key to this study, to the book, it's really that there are various levels of integration. So as I show you in the last image, the last, let's say, table, that graph, there were two avenues. So one where the initiatives really doesn't want to be integrated, and the other where the initiative pushes for integration. And I would say the integrations should start from need. So where the citizen could meaningfully complement instead of duplicating existing monitoring actions, and how to include them in a way that they can really meaningfully contribute without appropriation. And I think I will tell you more later on the dilemma of integration, but a key point is really that integration, while keeping a sort of critical distance, that is fundamental to ensure the citizen can still critique the government or complement it while being heard structurally. So, and I would say I made some suggestion on how to, by regulation, integrate citizen sensing into risk governance. And I really much claimed in the debate, for example, the European Citizen Science Association as a steward, with a stewardship role for ensuring that the way citizen science becomes integrated into official decision-making is a very much a agreed process, so that the communities are also happy with it. I think this is a key element, as basically on these successful elements I built the integrative framework. So the suggestion for integrating citizen sensing into risk decision making. So first of all, the quality of the data is fundamental, as without like sound results, there's no meaning in integrating citizen science. It's also for credible and accurate data. It doesn't mean to be 100% accurate. They can help the governors in being guided towards a better choice, but they need to be produced in a sound way. Otherwise, they're not even useful for your orientation, let's say. Second, it's really important to have to show that they are kind of complementing institutional efforts. So there is a missing spot, there is a gap, there is something for what this data really needed for addressing a risk. And third, I think it was really important to see that kind of this distrust discourse, as I mentioned earlier. So to feel that the citizens are ready to engage, but don't fully trust the institution. So they watch over how they're going to be integrating their inputs. And I think when the institution feels that, they also feel a sense of responsibility to addressing this distrust. And eventually the integration starts with a sort of, let's start again, let's build something meaningful together, rather than keep opposing that's draining energies and doesn't ensure a better, swifter reply to a risk. From the analysis, the qualitative comparative analysis allowed me to really kind of weight the various conditions in QCA terms. And one was social uptake as sort of a preliminary condition with the other elements. And I assessed how this influenced policy uptake, and actually social uptake is fundamental to having policy uptake. So before moving institution, it's fundamental to move other social actors that will start kind of believing to the initiative, because the mass, a critical mass, follow it. And in a sense, this is reasonable. Can be also risky, because some good initiatives that don't allow that don't manage to attract this critical mass are then left out of the discussion. But I think this will be an important aspect to consider. And social uptake, in a sense, can also occur without policy uptake and can be enough. So if a critical mass start do something, then in a sense, sometimes also the environmental problem can be addressed without need to record to the government. And this is also fascinating. Risk we are dealing with and our governments are dealing with are increasingly becoming complex. And I said that before COVID, and now after the pandemic, it seems like really even more actual. So it seems that the kind of risk that we are talking about are really, really entangled. And so I would say we need the citizen because we need more fine-grained understanding of risks, especially those that are particularly bearing on people in their daily life. And I would say one of the value of putting on board also civic information is that we understand what's important for them and what's their perception of the risk. And that can vary incredibly from what experts think the risk is, rightly or badly, and it's not always rightly so that this perception varies so much. But especially after a disaster, for example, the way people perceive that risk, also in abstract, it's incredibly different from what experts would say. And again, like also going back to what Muki suggested, that if we still put only the industry standards in it or the governmental standards in it, we risk to silence a social bubble that will explode. So for me, integration is a way to avoid conflicts downhill.
The book Sensing the Risk has shown how the integration of citizen sensing into a regulatory framework is still a milestone that we are far to achieve. However, it pointed how an integrative framework for having citizen sensing structurally contributing to risk governance is possible and outlined some elements that should be included in there. For example, a preservation of the grassroots nature of the practice and attention to the so-called integration dilemma for ensuring that integration doesn't come at the cost of the initiative independence. And especially when we are talking about complex environmental issues, independence is fundamental. So in an integratory framework, we could draw from existing initiatives that are going on from the European Citizen Science Association, the US Citizen Science Association, and other good practices around the world. The book offers a novel view into how, from a community perspective, policymakers should approach this challenge. There is still a lot to do. And indeed, with the book, we kind of paved the way to a new research idea, that is how citizen sensing can actually open a debate in the court arena. So while in the Sensing the Risk book, I focused on the policy uptake of risk citizen sensing, in Sensing for Justice, the ongoing project that you see the website now on the screen, is about researching the potential of citizen sensing for judicial uptake. So for being used in litigation, in environmental litigation, as a source of environmental evidence, and possibly without resorting to the court as a tool to mediate environmental conflicts. So I would like to invite you all to dive into the book, and if the book inspired you, reach me and discuss with me and inspire your community action, your research actions, your practice actions on the lessons that Sensing the Risk draw. If you're also interested in the judicial uptake of citizen sensing, then also reach us for Sensing for Justice. And I hope to hear from you very soon.